You got that. I don't even have that. Welcome, everyone. Renee says we're live.
We are live.
And we're talking about not my favorite subject, to be honest with you, because I need help with it. So guess who needs to be Renee's client? But we're talking about sex.
Sex.
Say the word, Renee.
Yes, we're talking about sex and relationships.
I love it. So we're going live on LinkedIn because there's a business discussion to have about sex, and also on my Facebook page. So I'm so excited to welcome, first time meeting her, Renee Taylor with Tailored Love.
That's it. Tailored Love, spelled L-U-V, because you deserve love your way.
I love that. So Taylor, first of all, thank you to Sheila Slick for introducing the two of us.
Yes, Sheila.
That's awesome. So we love Sheila. She's our new SCORE webmaster and SCORE certified business mentor, and she is doing a fantastic job. So kudos to Sheila for always knowing who to connect at the right time.
Yes, thank you, Sheila, for this opportunity. She's one of my mentors. And if you are starting a business and you have questions, SCORE is the right way to go. I've used SCORE in 3 different states, so they're all over. New York, in Atlanta, and now here. So any place I go, I've always made SCORE one of my go-to resources for business.
I am so excited. I hope to meet you in person. I'm also in Daytona Beach. So like male, woman, whatever it is, whatever, because woman, whatever, it doesn't even matter. When did sex become a topic of a conversation that we actually have to have as a discussion and workshops, and why do we need help, me included?
Well, I always say sex is one of those taboo topics. It's one of those topics that's always talked about, but it's so coveted as well. Sex is everywhere. You see it on TV, you see it in ads and commercials, but it's still something that a lot of people do not know a lot about, or know even about their own sexuality or their own sexual being. I look at sex in a way of growth, just the way we continue to grow intellectually, spiritually, we continue to grow sexually throughout our lifespan. But for some reason, people tend to not discuss or want to address the need for continual sexual growth. And within our relationships as well. It's all a growth experience.
Mindset growth?
Everything, yes. Because if you look at the way life is, we base our life on a series of events. So things that we have experienced in the past, it always has an effect on us. If it's trauma, if it's something that's pleasurable, it all has an effect on us and who we are. And that also affects our decision making in the future. So when we have these relationships, these sexual relationships, or different sexual experiences, all of that is shaping us. It is shaping our sexual template. So that's why you might have some people that are saying, they might never have had a satisfying sexual relationship, but they don't even know how to please themselves or what they like. A lot of people don't feel they're worthy of it because of past sexual trauma. So there are so many things that get in the way of that continual sexual growth that I know we all deserve to have, because that is also a part of our own growth process.
All right, I have a ton of questions, but let's go back to who you are. How did you get started in this? Where you're located now? Let's concentrate on Renee Taylor, and then we'll ask all of my questions.
Okay, so how did I get started in this? I think we all have a purpose, and I honestly feel this is my purpose. I used to joke around when I was a long time ago, and I remember I was out of college. People would say, "Are you going to go back and get your master's? You just finished school. That's the last thing you're thinking about." And I would always joke and say, "Only if I'm going to get my PhD in sexology." At the time, I didn't even know it existed. It was just something that I used to throw out there, just for the fun of it. And so now to see myself in this, I'm going for my in the process of obtaining my PhD, it's kind of like, wow, you never know what you're actually speaking into existence, or was it actually just a message that you didn't even know that you were receiving? but it's one of those, but it's still a full circle thing. So I do feel that this is my purpose and where I'm meant to be. I've always had a curiosity about sex. I'm one of those people that will sneak at night and listen to, it was Judy, Dr. Judy, and, and Dr. Ruth. I'll be listening. I was like about 12, listening to these sex therapy, sex therapists or educators. And it was, Sue Johansson, anything, real sex, anything dealing with sex, I was all for it, watching it, absorbing it, and just when this came up, I just knew it was meant to be. But it was not something I always thought about. I actually lived in San Francisco for 2 years, and I went to a pleasure party that a friend had, and the person that was doing the pleasure party, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, you know what? I think I could do it, but do it better. I was working for a branding company at the same time. So I figured, my thought was, if you market this and brand this in a way, you could actually make this a really great product. So I had started Hot Pink and Black, which was a pleasure party company that I had in 2002, right up until 2012, when I decided to go back to school. I dibble and dabble in it off and on, but it was still always a passion. I love sex toys and educating people on purchasing sex toys, self-pleasure, and, it just became more apparent based on the questions I would receive when I do these shows, the amount of people that still have questions about sex, sexuality, sensuality, their own experiences, and just all these questions out there really propelled me to, like, when the time, just happened to come around, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go for this. And so here I am now.
I love that. It's funny. So I have 3 sons, and raising them was really easy. There wasn't any issues. And not that raising my daughter is so difficult, though it really is. But but what I find is interesting is that she is more open speaking about sex, whereas I would never, ever have had the conversations that she has with me, with my mom. Oh my gosh, no way. And then I think you're right when you say it is what you grew up with. And my parents were so loving and close. I mean, they literally, my mom passed away like a month before her 70th wedding anniversary. My mom and dad, my dad was like not even himself. And he lived for another 2 years, but he wasn't even in his right state of mind because it was the love of his life. But I never really saw, they actually had separate beds for growing up. I remember that. I never caught my parents in any compromising situations. And maybe that's just because I was a kid and I would never go into the room with the door locked. Like I just didn't do, even close. But I naturally feel slightly a little prudish, that. Like there were times where I would be at different events, business events. I'm talking business professional events, and I would watch, the discussions, like talk and that sexual in what is that called? That kind of like
those,
thank you,
a little flirt in, and yes.
And I would get totally awkward. I mean, I'm ready to leave. By the way, Sheila wrote, "Hi, Renee and Adrienne. Love that you know your purpose." So I agree with that.
Hey.
I don't feel like and I don't mean to be talking about Mimi, but I think that I'm a good example of someone that when I do see the TikTok videos, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot you're showing, young lady. And I'm thinking maybe that's also, though in a weird way, maybe I'm a little jealous that I wish that I could be comfortable in my own skin. Because isn't that what it is? Once you're comfortable in your own skin, then it makes it easier to get passionate.
Yes, definitely. That speaks a lot about our own self-confidence and we feeling sexual within ourselves. There was a time, and you have to look at the view of women and men, shapes and bodies and attraction change throughout centuries. So there is always this kind of look that people tend to feel like they should have in order for them to be sexual. But the truth is, we're all sexual beings. We all have equipment to be sexual. And it does start with that self-confidence and that mindset. to say that I am beautiful in my skin and all of my curves and my body. So all of that is very important. I love Lizzo for that. Love, love, love Lizzo.
I got my nails done. Check my hair.
There you go. I love Lizzo for that. 'Cause she's all about that, loving her curves and embracing her sexuality, and being
And she is
comfortable within her
gorgeous.
skin. She is very gorgeous and within her skin. But that's also something that I resonate with because it's something that I grew up with. My mother was a curvy woman, and she was extremely comfortable in her skin and her sexuality. And I know that's one of the reasons that we talked to, you say, mention your family and what you was raised around and seeing. Everything was behind closed doors. They had double beds. So it truly gave that impression of there was no sex going on. We were loving and close as far as, feelings and sharing of emotions, but not talking about sex and sexuality. So, but in my household, it was completely different. My mom was very open about sex, talking about it. She, again, I said, as a curvy woman, I remember she did a fashion show and she wore lingerie in this fashion show. So growing up for me and seeing that, I always had, it really did instill this confidence about sex and sexuality and the birthright of it, the birthright of that sex being sexual pleasure is my birthright. I have a right to
Wow.
be sexually pleased. And it doesn't have to be with a partner. It could be with myself. It could be just within the way that I love to get dressed and go out and dance and have a good time. And just being in that comfort of itself is also in a lot of ways a sexual feeling and uplifting inside.
Interesting. So yeah, I think of that sometimes when I look at myself and I see immediately all my flaws, and then my husband's going, "No, no, you're beautiful," and I'm
Mhm.
like, I have a hard time to kind of. But you're right. I also think years matter too, right? Like you're
Mhm.
different. So I personally feel my daughter is way too young. So I'll be honest. I did not have sex until I was 1 month before my 18th birthday.
Okay.
And yeah, my mom really wanted me to wait till I was 18, but I couldn't. I remember that. But I was so proud of myself even at that time. Now, when I tell my daughter's friends I was like 17 and 11 months, they look at me like I'm a weirdo. So, what's going on with, like, what's happening this day and age with our teenagers, because they know that they can get pregnant,
Mhm.
they know about STDs, but they still think when they're watching TikToks and when they're seeing adults that they can act like an adult. So, do you have any advice for parents that have teenagers, daughters or boys? Because I mean, my daughter had a boyfriend, and he was also very uh, vocal about it, and
Right.
so dealing with that was kind of difficult too.
Yeah.
So, I'm all ears for advice.
Yes. I talk about it. Be open. Be honest. Don't shy away from questions. They might not want to hear it, but just letting them know, that it is pleasurable, but there are risks, and you have to take precautions. You have to just have the conversation. They are
Okay.
listening. They want to know. Studies have shown that comprehensive sex education, that is talking about all forms of sexuality, protection, not shying away from it, not talking about abstinence only, is a much more effective with teens in making a decision to abstain. So telling someone, don't do it because it's wrong or religious reasons, or, you're going to get, you're going to be a scorned woman for the rest of your life, whatever they say out there, does not work. The only thing it does, it just makes them more curious. And then you're not arming them with the right information to protect themselves. So that's the disservice parents do to their children, because it's everywhere. You can't really hide your children from sex. The
That's
images,
a question. You can't, right? Not
you
this day
can't.
and age.
No, you can't. And even if in the 60s and the 50s, I have a lot of older clients and I talk to them and they talked about getting the magazines and, and seeing their parents, their friends' mothers, the hot ones. And so, I mean, it's still there. Marilyn Monroe. I mean, the imagery, the pinup girls, the imagery has always been there. It's still there. So
It
we
is. You're right.
hide it. Even if you were walking, look at architecture from the 1800s, you will see images of sex.
Like when my husband and I want to get it on, like, I lock the door? Do I tell my daughter, like, don't bother me? Like, we just kind of like lock everything up and tell her we're watching TV. But I was always wondering, what do other people do? Like, do you wait till she never goes anywhere, so we would be stuck. We'd have to go in the car. So what's the advice for, like, when you have other people in your house?
Right.
Do you think about them, or do you just go forget about them?
It depends on what's taking place in the house as far as the other people. How old is your daughter?
15 and a half.
So she understands what's going on, right? So you can always, there are so many ways you could do this. It just depends on your routine. And sometimes, it might be your routine to say, the both of you sleep in late on Sundays and you're there and that's your time together. So your daughter will come to understand that Sunday mornings, my parents like to stay late in their room. They like to sleep in. You don't have to be doing anything. It could just be your time to connect, and that's going to be something that you choose to do. Or, just setting your own dates and going out on dates and having that for yourself. And I think your daughter, she's 15, so she understands if you're in your room and the door is locked, you're in your room and the door is locked and you're having private time and you're private. I think for parents that have younger children, it gets a little bit harder to do the scheduling. Got to put the children down. By the time as you do that, then, go back to the room, you're kind of tired. And so it gets a little bit harder when the kids are younger. I say schedule it. That's one of the biggest things. We schedule everything in life. You schedule your doctor's appointments. You schedule, even schedule when you're going to go to the grocery store. Have this amount of time, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Schedule it. Put it on the calendar. You don't have to say it's sex night. You could say it's date night. You could say it's coupling, whatever you want to choose. I know a lot of people tend to think if I schedule it, then it's not spontaneous. Well, it is in a lot of ways could be spontaneous. The act of what you're going to do is spontaneous. But when you schedule it, you're actually now starting to build up the anticipation for the day because it's on the calendar. So your mind is thinking about what you're going to wear. You get in, that's the whole mindset. So now your mindset is starting to get on this evening and all the things are going to come into play.
That's good advice, actually. It's funny. You think, like, I can think to myself, I'm 59, I know everything, but this is one topic, the topic of sex.
You gotta get you to say it at least once before we end.
No, I'm not saying the word sex. So, very good. I mean, this is great advice. We were talking a little bit beforehand that I was admitting that it also takes me some time to relax. So I can't go from like working, doing dishes and cleaning to hopping in bed and like fooling around. Like that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And foreplay is very important. That's the reason why. It takes a woman 30 minutes on average, between 18 to 30 minutes to warm up, for their body to become fully relaxed and ready for penetration, or just just things that needs to do a whole lot of things in between. And that's when we talk about scheduling, an evening with your partner. That's one of the ways you could actually do that. Your body starts getting ready because of the mindset and start, thinking about it. And so when you are meeting, you could kind of work your way into it slowly and. So that's just one of those ways of actually going about getting yourself prepared.
Okay. And I'll use a limoncello too. That's in the fridge. All right. Yes. So what's interesting to me too, is that I have seen, I remember this one time we were at this event and it was a great event. And one of the girls that was working was fooling around with a couple of different people. Sure. And it was really noticeable that she was leaving and going to the hotel room and then coming back down and leaving. And we were all like, oh my gosh. But she ended up getting fired. She got fired and was asked to leave the conference. which I thought was pretty smart. And I worked for Muscular Dystrophy Association for years. That was really one of the first times of not going with the family business, but going outside the
Right.
family business to like the conferences. And I was really surprised at how a little bit of liquor would let down your guard, and then
Mm-hmm.
people would, and I'm like, "Ooh, you're gonna get caught or you're gonna get in trouble." But that was before too, like social media and the discussion of what not to do. Do you think that companies have to have some kind of contingency or in their handbook about two co-workers fooling around or being very careful of not going through all your co-workers?
Right. I think it's interesting that number one, she got fired. I wonder what happened to the men that she was actually engaging with. So that's one that just came to my mind. But the other
Smart.
thing is, I do know some companies. I've never worked for a large corporation. This is even before I got into counseling, mainly because I don't like a lot of rules. So I know that working with a large corporation, they do have some of those rules in place that you cannot date a coworker. If you do, you have to kind of let it be known to human resource. Um, there are some companies that might have. I'm trying to think of the right name for it, but they have certain clauses in there depending on if they're a key owner or principal. That you can't be caught in compromising positions. You have to always present a good front to represent the agency. So something like that might be, sexual scandal would be something that, yeah, that
SCX scandal.
yes, that could get you fired. So, corporations could do what they choose to do. Some of those things are in there. But I would say for individuals, we all have to be smart about our sexual choices and how it's going to play not just a role in our careers, but a role in our personal life. How is it going to affect our family by when you make these decisions? I read these things sometimes about people saying, oh, wanting advice because they slept with their husband's father or their mother, their wife's mother, these types of things that take place. And you kind of wonder what is going through your mind. I know there's a whole no judgment on anyone, no judgment, no shame, but you do have to wonder sometime, what is this decision behind that? Like, what decision did you make for this? So there's so many questions that comes into play. Um, but individuals need to kind of we just have better decision making. And if you find that you're getting in a lot of issues because of sex, then you might want to seek therapy, counseling to find out what is that. Is a trauma response that these actions are coming from. Lack of self-worth, looking to feel connected. So there are so many reasons why someone might be making these decisions that are affecting them in such a negative way, and using sex as a way to kind of hide or pain. But
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. We'll get off this subject and go back to actually what you will be offering. So I see that you have like workshops, presentation. Who is your ideal customer? So who would you target to? Who are you going to target to? And tell me about your presentations and workshops.
okay, so I do several things. So one of them is tailored love individual counseling, is sex and relationship therapy for women. That's my target audience with the individual counseling. Yes. And the main reason for that is because, women, depending on what studies you look at, 60 to 80% of women have never experienced an orgasm. 1 out of 4 women experience sexual trauma, relationship, domestic violence. So all of that is rolled up. It really stops women from being self-actualizing, becoming their full self and who they could truly be. So that's one of the reasons why my individual practices focus on women. I do workshops and presentations I've done them for various community agencies. One of my favorites is the 5 love languages. I do that for teens. I've also done that in a retreat setting for mothers and daughters. It's just an understanding of how we show love and how do we accept and receive love. It's not what you might think. And recognizing your children, your partners, the people that matter to you, their love language, and how you can communicate that to them. And also for yourself, understanding your own love language and how you can help people understand your love language and how, but and what makes you feel seen, in other words. So that
I feel like that would be good for my daughter and I.
yeah. Yeah, I've done it at a tea party, so it's a lot of ways. I used to do, since I've come from the party world of home parties, and I also had a women's group called Wine, Women, and Wisdom. So I'm very creative when it comes to coming up with different ways of teaching. Teaching is another thing that I love to do, and just ways to kind of bring that together. So I could do home parties, tea parties, presentation. It's like you tell me what you're interested in hearing, and I could create it. So I'm a
Wow.
master creator.
You mentioned the parties. It's funny. I actually did have a great conversation with Chris Ciccanelli of the CEO of Pure Romance.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked and he was really excellent. It was really exciting to talk with him. I couldn't believe that I scored Chris Ciccanelli. But anyways,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, when you think about how many women are selling his products, and he every day at 9 a.m. without fail, he does a live with all of them, which I thought was
Oh,
really
wow.
interesting. Yeah, really great. All right, I love that. I really think having a daughter that 15 and a half, that really makes a lot of sense. And it would have
Mhm.
really helped me if that was available. I mean, it wasn't.
Right.
Sex wasn't talked about when I was growing up. So, but anyways, I really am interested in that. So I want to definitely make sure I receive that information so we can join. And then what else? What other programs do you offer?
So I do professional trainings. I've done a few of those, even for in the agency that I work with, and for peers as well as graduate students. Again, it just depends what you're looking for. I'm in the process of. I have a retreat that I have prepared for single ladies and sex. So think of it as an adult sex education for single women about one, loving yourself, and two, coming up with your own sexual template. What are the things that you are looking for when it comes to looking for a romantic relationship? And this is for all women, regardless of sexual orientation. So that's something I'm currently working on, and we'll be launching, start advertising really soon about that, but it'll be scheduled for sometime in February.
I love this open conversation. I remember when I first saw the Ashley Madison commercial,
Mhm.
and it was on like CNN, and I thought to myself, this is crazy. So I because it was on CNN, I was like, okay, this is CNN is a reputable news station. And then
Mhm.
when I Googled it, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that there would be something like Ashley Madison. But then I'm like, Adrienne, you're such a prude. It's not a bad thing. It's kind of could be a very good thing that you have the ability, because open relationships are out there.
Yes. So the thing to know is I call them designer relationships. There are so many names. The polycule,
Oh,
the polys, solo poly. There's like so many terminology now. So I just say designer relationships. The main thing of any relationship is honesty. You could be in a polyamorous relationship and still break the contract. Just because someone is in a poly relationship does not mean that they cannot still be a cheater.
so explain what that means, though, just so that everyone knows.
Polyamorous means being in love or having a relationship with more than one person. It is intended to be an open relationship amongst all people involved, but sometimes there might be someone in that relationship that still decides that they don't want to tell the other partners that they're seeing someone else, and they still see someone else. That is still cheating. Anytime you go against the contract meaning this is our understanding in this relationship. Anytime you go against that contract, it's cheating.
Wow, interesting. Wow. I mean, I really don't even know what to say with that. That is wow,
But
but
a
that
lot
really
more,
makes sense.
yeah, but a lot more people are looking to be in open relationships. They're looking to be more honest about their own sexual desires and needs. And just because someone says, I really desire to be more adventurous in sex, and my partner does not feel that way, um, if they are open to say, well, let's explore what this will look like, it does, as long as they're open about that, and that person who might want to be in another relationship understands this is our contract, this is our do's and don'ts. As long as they maintain that, then great. But as soon as you don't maintain it, then it's an issue.
All right, that's a good point too. That is really a good point to be upfront and honest and have those conversations. Wow. All right, I'm gonna start taking your advice and I'll see if it helps me a little bit. And then, all right, do you have Facebook groups? Any other way? I know that's a website. And tell me what you have for social media.
Right now, I just have Instagram, tailored underscore love on, at tailored underscore love, TAYLORED underscore LUV. Um, that's it at this moment. I'm just in the, like I said, I just launched my Tailored Love 2 weeks ago. I've been doing a lot of other things like the workshops and the co-authoring on, articles. But so now I just need to focus more of my time on building. I do have a few clients, but so it's exciting.
It really is. Sounds like a really exciting time. Okay, before we leave, we've been 32 minutes. I would like to hear your elevator pitch. How do you introduce yourself?
Oh gosh! Usually, all I have to say, hi, I'm Renee Taylor. I'm a licensed I'm a licensed sex therapist, and that's it. Once you say you're a sex therapist, people don't want to know anything else. They just have all these other questions. You don't need another.
That's okay. That's fine. You're right. You're leaving it in the open. I guess you could add that who you help, who you serve.
Yes, yes, but you're
That
right.
may help.
Yeah, but I was saying, as soon as you say you're a sex therapist, there's so many questions come. You don't even have to say anything else.
Right, right.
So, right. But if I were to come up with the elevator pitch, it would be, I'm Renee Taylor. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and board certified sex therapist. I specialize in counseling services with women, and I also provide workshops and retreats for self education, sex education, and pleasure and love.
I love it. That's awesome. That's great. It's so nice to meet you, Renee. I'm so excited that we had this conversation about sex and and I actually will stay in touch with you so that once you start to have some of these different things, I would like to get involved and talk to you more,
Great.
or send me the price list of what it means for coaching, because there must be something inside me that can sometimes make me. I mean, the other thing though is I do suffer from kidney stones. I have a sponge kidney. If you were to cut my kidneys, they look like sponges, and then in the sponges are all my stones.
Right.
So it really is uncomfortable. So that's another conversation, right?
Yes,
Sex with
it
someone
is.
who is chronically in pain,
Yes.
and what that looks like.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so broad. That's one of the things about sex. I think people always tend to think about just the physical act, but it's so much more to it. It is so much more. And that's one of the reasons why I love it and it keeps me intrigued. But definitely, so working with someone that have health issues, and how do they maintain their sexuality and feelings of sex, and ways to help someone with just learning different positions and techniques. So all of those things are reasons why you would definitely come to see a sex therapist.
I love that. Thank you so much. I do think that you would really be terrific on a Clubhouse, which is a audio app. And I think that you could definitely start having rooms and build your business that way. Another way where you're talking to people that are from all over, because you don't need to actually see the person in real life, right? You can Zoom it on. Okay. If you need any help with Clubhouse, I will share with you and Sheila. Otherwise, thank you so much for today. It really was nice talking to you. You're very sweet too. Thank you for your emails, and you're just lovely in person. And I look forward to meeting you. So thank you so much.
You too.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And we will talk XEX. I'll say the word when I see you in real life.
Okay, great.
I'll say SEX. I will. I will really do it.
You said it earlier. So when you had, it was funny because you said it when you had a conversation with you. So there she just said it. She just
sex. I got it. But normally when I do talk, I'll spell it out, which is weird too. Like why I spell it out. All right. And there's all these personality tests, but they're never like about like your sexuality too. Like, can you imagine if the DISC test all of a sudden tells you like, oh, you're an introvert, you're an extrovert. Oh, you love sex, you don't love sex.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. All right. I'll let you go. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much. If you've been listening on LinkedIn, this is a business conversation. Sex in the business. I'm not talking about that, but we all work and you go home, and those are the times that you need to relax and you need to think about how you can be confident in yourself and mindset. So I love all of that. And if you're on Facebook listening, yay, great. Maybe it seems like it's better for Facebook, but I disagree. I think that you have to have your SEX conversation really and every day, because a lot of business conversations do turn to it. And the only thing I would say etiquette wise is make sure around the table that everyone is comfortable. Because if you do see someone like me that's sitting there like, maybe tune it back a little bit, or ask someone like me to go get you a drink. Adrienne, can you leave the table for a few minutes? Because I would rather do that sometimes than listen. All right. I will let you go. I'll stop recording. I love it. Thank you so much, Renee, for your